Gen OHA as a highest HbA1c reduction as of your knowledge?
Pardon, I didn't get you, please.
Yeah. Which second gen OHA
Ah.
has the highest HbA1c reduction as of your knowledge?
Acha. So as far as my knowledge and my experience goes, the best one is the initial period. It is the glibenclamide, which is the most potent out of all the anti-hyperglycemic agents. Not only the sulfonylureas, not only the gliptins, not only the metformin, not only the SGLT2 inhibitors, not only the GLP-1 receptor agonists. After insulin, the maximum reduction is seen in the initial period only with glibenclamide, and it is last over period of time. And glipizide also has got, after glibenclamide, glipizide reduces the HbA1c to the maximum level after this thing. And the glimepiride and the glycoside are more or less on the same track in the, like it's 1.22 versus 1.1 reduction. It's almost 1 to 1, like the reduction will be 1% with glycoside or 1% with the glimepiride. But the sustainability and the durability is seen with this glimepiride and the glycoside, and with the glipizide also it is seen, but that is not seen with the most potent sulfonylurea, the glibenclamide. This is as per the theory, and I am experiencing, because some patients, the durability of glibenclamide is more than like 40 to 50 years. I have got my patients who are above the age of 80 or 90, who have been using this Dianyl, the brand name of the glibenclamide, the standard drug, the gold standard drug is Dianyl. That is, they have been using it even before I was born. That is 1965. They started way back in 1955 also, and they are still on that particular molecule. I always try to change the molecule. The next minute it shoots up anything, and the patient says, "Sir, I'll get back to my own molecule." So if I do, I keep changing that. The patient will ultimately change me. He'll go to some other doctor. That's it. So this is the double-edged weapon. See, either the way we can see the glibenclamide, the being the durability last before 5 years, and still working very effectively in certain population segment, even after 50-60 years also. Still the patients are safely maintaining the euglycemia and the A1C levels with simple only Dianyl, nothing else, no metformin, nothing. Any other question, please?
So there are no more questions. Yeah, there is one more question.
Yeah.
Glycoside efficiency in actual practice seen in what dose?
Glycoside efficiency in what dose? In clinical practice.
In actual practice.
Actual practice, it is the best thing is the 80 milligram BD along with this metformin 500 mg or 1000 milligram is the ideal dose. That's what I commonly use. And after the modified and the extended releases have come, we are using them especially in the patients. The one is where metformin is not being tolerated or contraindicated, like when the EGFR goes below 30, we use that particular molecule, either the 30 milligram or the 60 milligram. It's a score tablet, you can make it half even the glycoside XR release, and you can find a very good result with that. And if it is with metformin, the ideal dosage is metformin 500 milligram sustained release or 1000 milligram sustained release, and the 80 milligram of the plain preparation of glycoside used BD will be the best dose for this particular glycoside in our clinical practice.
The next question is highest efficacy seen in what dose?
Highest efficacy. Yeah, I never have exceeded the dose of 160 so far. I have never touched in my 3 decades of my clinical practice. I never had gone for the maximal dose of this particular glibenclamide, the glycoside of 320. I have stopped at the level of only 160, and it is showing the maximum result for me. and not alone this glycoside, but the add-on is first is metformin, and then I add this particular the glycoside. If not, I'll go for alpha glucosidase inhibitor, and if it is not contraindicated, I would go for low dose pioglitazone, that is 7.5, and that particular point the patient is not to the target. It's high time you stop adding another agent. You have to go for insulin inevitably, whether your third drug will be a DPP4 inhibitor or an SGLT2 inhibitor, whatever it may be. If it is not working, that is, you don't find the reasonable fasting plasma glucose, and you don't find the reasonable postprandial plasma glucose, and you don't find the reasonable HbA1c, you just have to think of insulin. Yes, to start with either the basal insulin or the basal plus or the biphasic premixed or the basal bolus, whatever it may be, the drug of choice will be only insulin after 3 drugs. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. So the next question is, if
Yeah.
we have to shift from glibenclamide to other OHA in a patient above 60 years, can we do it suddenly if they are using glibenclamide for a long
Acha,
time?
yeah,
How do we do it, sir?
yeah, the question is, if the patient is on glibenclamide above the age of 60, and how to shift over to other molecules. That is the question, right? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what the question, I think. The patient is above 60 years and on glibenclamide. You want to shift over to, want to stop the glibenclamide, keeping the hypoglycemic episodes, or whatever be the reason. As per the theory, as per the practice, you should stop it, and how to stop it, and how to switch over to other molecules. That is the question, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And the next question is,
Let me finish it up. First of all, let me
yeah,
answer the
sure,
question. So, if at all you want to stop glibenclamide, if the patient is on 5 milligram glibenclamide BD, you can either go for the 5 milligram of glipizide BD by replacing the glibenclamide, or you can go to the 80 milligram of glycoside BD, or with the glimepiride, you can go for 3 milligram of glimepiride BD, or max by max you can go for 4 milligram of glimepiride, one in the morning, one in the night, along with the existing drugs. If you feel that it is not controlled, you can go for other drugs like the DPP4 inhibitors, which are very safe, and with a caution you can all the time go for the best the pleiotropic drugs like the SGLT2 inhibitors, which are very safe. But okay, you have to counsel the patient prior to the initiation of SGLT2 inhibitors, that the patient may get into the euglycemic DKA and the dehydration, and patient is prone to genitourinary infections like maybe the bacterial infections or the monilial infections, or sometimes there are certain case reports with SGLT2 inhibitors that the very serious form, that is the Fourni's gangrene, or the otherwise known as the necrotizing fasciitis of the perineum, have been reported. 19 cases of necrotizing fasciitis of the perineum were reported to USFDA. So use with caution. Ask the patient to maintain some genitourinary hygiene, and ask the patient to get adequately hydrated before you initiate an SGLT2 inhibitor. So that will solve the problem. So you cannot, if the patient is affordable, you can go for the SGLT2 inhibitors, because they have got the proven cardiorenal safety actually, and it is very useful in very obese patients, because you can at least reduce to a tune of 4 to 5 kilos, not beyond 5 kilos, but at least you can, in my clinical practice, I have seen the patients reducing the weight by at least 3 to 4 to 5 kilos over a period of time. So there are multiple options. And if the patient still is not to the target, you can add a basal insulin. In the elderly patients, to start with is always a safe one time bedtime insulin, the 10 p.m. insulin, the basal insulin. Preferably the basal analogs, the designer insulins like insulin glargine, U300, insulin glargine U300, and the best out of all is the Deglutec. All the time Deglutec scores over all the things. Okay, you always have the multiple choices in your armamentarium of the anti the diabetic portfolio, the treatment of type 2 diabetes. But only thing is when to start a tablet and how to maintain it and how to intensify it, and anything is best at its place. That is, the selection of molecule is very very important, that you have to do it with all caution, with all the knowledge, and not on the trial and error basis. Please don't play with the patients. If you are not able to do that, please refer it to some specialist so that he will do the job in a nice smoother way. Like all the time I say in all my speaker programs, one size doesn't fit all. Yes, one glove doesn't suit for all. Yeah, can I have the next question?
Yeah. So, sir, what is the difference between XR and modified release and dosing per day, or both are same?
Both are absolutely same. It's only a commercial gimmick. Modified release, extended release, sustained release, and all. Whatever you call it is only one and same. The same molecule which has got the very short acting in duration. You have to make it a 24 acting in like in the duration of the action. That is what is called. Some companies say SR, some companies say MR, some companies say XR. One and all is same. Please don't get confused by all this terminology. Anything that is not in the plain form, which is not like, for example, glimepiride, you don't need to, because glimepiride is the plasma of life is more than 36 hours, so you don't need to go for an XR or MR or SR or something else. The gimmick is only for those molecules which are very short. You want to prolong the action, like the insulin. What we see, the protomanized insulin, the rapid human insulins. That is mixed with the protominated insulin, which makes the biphasic premixed. Like premixed is that human mixed. So like that, they all one and are same. Please don't get confused by the terminology. They all mean the same thing. Yeah, fine. I can find my good friend Anandu Chandran, my good friend Viralam Karthik. Oh, so many my friends are there on the platform. Okay. Any questions, please? Very good evening, Anandu Chandran. Karthik, good evening. Any more questions, please? Am I audible?
Is there difference in HbA1c in switching sulfonal areas in uncontrolled HbA1c after reaching the effective dose of sulfonal areas?
No, you have to repeat it. Your voice is not audible.